with the chapter photosynthesis. Let's recap what exactly we learned yesterday. What I did yesterday was I just ran through the entire book. I had missed the chapter evolution to mention over there. So we have also the chapter evolution which has been included from the last year's batch. Now coming to photosynthesis straight away, not to waste time. We learned yesterday what is photosynthesis, the importance of photosynthesis, the structure of chloroplast and the mechanism of photosynthesis. Now these are the 4 points that we had dealt with yesterday. In the mechanism of photosynthesis, we had learned about the light reaction and dark reaction. I told you the light reaction takes place in the granule of the chloroplast and the dark reaction takes place in the stroma of the chloroplast. And I also had missed out yesterday one point, that is the singular is called granum, the plural is called your granum, which means a group of granum is called granum. And I told you a group of thylakoids form the granum and a group of granum forms a granum. Now I didn't tell you exactly where the chloroplast is present. I told you in all the green parts of the plant the chloroplast is present. However, coming to the main part of the plant which actively participates in the photosynthesis is your leaf. Coming to the structure of leaf, the leaf has got an upper epidermis and lower epidermis, okay, and down below in the upper epidermis you have a layer called the cuticle, which is made up of waxy layer, which is very important in case of your photosynthesis to absorb light. And below the epidermis you have a collectively called cells called mesophyll cells. Now these mesophyll cells are made up of a rectangular shaped palisade tissue and your intercellular space, group of cells with intercellular space called spongy parenchyma. So the palisade cells and the spongy parenchyma are collectively called mesophyll cells, in which the chloroplast is abundantly embedded over there. I repeat, the chloroplast is highly concentrated in the mesophyll region, and the mesophyll cells are the cells comprising both the palisade tissue and spongy tissue, which contains the chloroplast, and it is in that place where the photosynthesis actively takes place. Besides that, in this stomata, the guard cells which forms the stomata, you have also the chloroplast over there where the photosynthesis also takes place. Then you have the endodermis, then phloem and xylem, and you have the lower epidermis, which is also embedded with your stomata. So the exchange of the gases takes place through the stomata. Now I will tell you what is the structure of stomata regarding the regulation of opening and closing of stomata. I will deal in the next class, as I said yesterday, after completing the chapter absorption of water by growth and transpiration. So when I complete 3 chapters together, if I deal with the opening and closing of stomata, you will have a better and clear understanding, as the logic will be clear for you. Now coming to the structure of stomata. Stomata is nothing but just the hole, the pore through which the gases passes through. The carbon dioxide enters through the stomata for photosynthesis, and after the cellular respiration, the oxygen goes out through the stomata, as well as the transpiration also takes place through the stomata. So stomata it's not a cell, but stomata is just a pore, and this particular pore is formed by 2 kidney-shaped cells or bean-shaped cells called guard cells. Okay, so you have a pair of guard cells which gives rise to. So this is your guard cells. This is one guard cell. This is another guard cell. So both of them together unite, and the cell they form. It is in a kidney-shaped structure. So you have a pore at the center, and this pore is called your stomata. And often the examination they ask you differentiate about the structure of leaf and the structure of stomata. I repeat, the stomata is a pore through which the gaseous exchange takes place as well as the transpiration takes place. And the stomata is formed by a pair of guard cells, and thus these guard cells are located on the epidermal region. So the epidermis consists of both stomata as well as the epidermal cells. Upon the epidermal cells, you have a layer called a cuticle, which is made up of waxy layer. So this is all about the structure of leaf as well as the structure of chloroplast. Now before I go to the experiments, let me tell you the factors affecting, okay, the photosynthesis. Now before the factors, we go to the adaptation of leaf for photosynthesis. How does the leaf adapt for efficiency of photosynthesis in plant? The first adaptation they have is they have a large surface area. Now, which means all the leaves do not have large surface area. Greater the surface area, greater is the efficiency of photosynthesis. Because the greater the surface area, take for example the banana leaf. They have the greater surface area, automatically greater light is absorbed and greater is the efficiency of synthesis of starch. So it enhances, the greater the surface of area, greater is the enhancement in the efficiency for photosynthesis to take place. The second adaptation that normally the leaves have is the leaf arrangement. Normally the leaves are arranged in right angle to the light surface. Meaning, if the leaf is arranged in right angle, automatically it can obtain more energy and in turn it enhances the efficiency in the rate of photosynthesis. The third, the cuticle and the upper epidermis. Now, the cuticle present on the upper epidermis is waxy and transparent in nature, and normally light passes through a transparent space, not an opaque. So, because of its transparent nature, it's easy for the light to pass through and go into the mesophyll tissue, and thus it enhances the efficiency of the photosynthesis. And the fourth adaptation that the leaf has is it has numerous stomata. Greater the number of stomata, greater is the entry of carbon dioxide in the atmospheric moisture, and thus greater is the availability of carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and thus you have the greater efficiency in the rate of photosynthesis. And the fifth adaptation normally the leaves have are, the fifth one is the thickness of leaves. You know, thinning the leaf, greater is the efficiency. Why? Because it reduces the distance between the cell. If it is thick, greater the number of cells are present, automatically the distance becomes greater. It cannot transport the food prepared at a rapid rate. Similarly, the gases cannot pass into the mesophyll cells at a rapid rate, and even the moisture also cannot, the water particles also cannot move from one cell to another. So, the thickness of leaves enhances the efficiency of translocation of the prepared food as well as the availability of raw materials needed for photosynthesis. Number 6, the numerous chloroplasts. Greater the number of chloroplasts, greater is the efficiency. That is a simple thing that we can understand. And normally, the chloroplast is concentrated on the upper region of the leaf because it is directly coming in contact with the atmosphere in the sunlight. So automatically there is easy availability of water, atmospheric moisture, the carbon dioxide as well as the sunlight. So it's easy for the chloroplast especially to trap the sunlight, to get activated and initiate the process of photosynthesis. And extensive vein system. You know, the leaf has got vein, the mid vein, lateral vein, etc. Normally the leaf has got, the mid vein, the lateral vein, etc. So greater the number of veins, greater is the translocation and transportation of the prepared food as well as even the conduction of water and other raw materials needed for photosynthesis. I repeat, the different adaptations that the leaf have for photosynthesis. Number 1, large surface area. Number 2, the leaf arrangement. The leaf is arranged in the right angle to the on the epidermal layer of the leaf. Then you have the leaf becomes thin, which reduces the distance between the cells and thus enhances the rapid movement. Then the chloroplast, numerous chloroplasts, greater the number of chloroplasts, greater is the efficiency of photosynthesis. Then you have the extensive vein system, which also enhances the rapid transport to and from mesophyll cells, especially the raw materials needed for photosynthesis. See, the last class we had seen, about the structure of leaf, because that's very important for you to understand where exactly the chloroplast is located. Now the chloroplast is present mostly, thickly concentrated in the mesophyll tissue. And we had learned about the structure of leaf. In the structure of leaf, you have the epidermis, you have the mesophyll cells, then you have mesophyll tissues, then you have the endodermis, phloem, xylem, and then you have the lower epidermis. Then you have the upper epidermis, you have the stomata. Then below the epidermis, you have the mesophyll tissues. The mesophyll tissues contains your spongy parenchyma as well as palisade tissue in which the chloroplast is present. Then you also have the adaptation of leaves. We dealt with about the 7 points regarding adaptation of leaves. And in adaptation of leaf, we have number 1, large surface area. 2, we have the leaf arrangement. 3, we have the cuticle, present on the upper epidermis. Then 4th, we have the numerous stomata. 5th, the thinness of leaves. And 6th, you have the chloroplast. 7th, you have the extensive vein system. Now these are the 7 adaptations which is needed or which the leaf adapts to enhance the efficiency or to increase the rate of efficiency or for them to do the photosynthesis perfectly and efficiently. But there are also various factors, as I said in the previous class, affecting the external factor and internal factor. The external factor is your light intensity, second is your carbon dioxide concentration, third is your temperature, fourth is the water content available. And the internal factors is your chloroplast, okay, and how healthy is the chloroplast. If the mineral element needed for the chloroplast, growth of the chloroplast or healthy nature of the chloroplast is there, then it is efficiently performing, otherwise it does not perform the photosynthesis. Similarly, I told you about the protoplast. If the protoplasm gets dehydrated, it cannot perform photosynthesis. At the same time, if it has more glucose and starch, it also cannot perform photosynthesis. You have a number of experiments, as I said in the last class. You have 4 main experiments. Number 1 is your chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Sunlight is essential for photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. And oxygen is involved in photosynthesis. Now these are the 4 main experiments. Besides that, after each experiment, you have a test called starch test. Okay. Now we will learn first what is starch test. Now before starch test, before performing any experiment on photosynthesis, you need to de-starch the leaf. I repeat, before performing any experiment on photosynthesis, you need to de-starch the leaf. De-starch. De matlab removal of the starch. Now how do you remove the starch? Now in the examination they will ask you what is de-starching. Now de-starching is nothing but keeping the plant in darkness for 24 to 48 hours. Now why do you keep the plant in darkness for 24 to 48 hours? We keep the plant in the darkness for 24 to 48 hours so that in those 24 to 48 hours, no sunlight is available, automatically the photosynthesis does not take place. Because the end product of photosynthesis is starch. And whatever the starch was synthesized previously, that will be utilized by the plant during these 24 to 48 hours as no preparation of food is taking place. At the end of the 48 hours or 24 hours, the plant absolutely will not have any starch inside the leaf cells or the plant cells. So the plant is totally hungry, the plant is totally without any starch. And that is why, second, they'll ask you why do you give reason. You have to de-starch the plant before performing any experiment on photosynthesis. I had mentioned in the first class, we have to de-starch before any experiment on photosynthesis because to prove that the starch synthesized, when you go for the starch test, if the leaf is containing starch, which means to prove that the starch is synthesized only during the experiment, there was no starch present before the commencement or before the beginning of the experiment. So because of that, we go for destarching. So the first step for experiment on photosynthesis is destarching, and we destarch by keeping the plant in darkness for 24 to 48 hours. Next we go to, before I go to the experiment proper, let me deal with the starch test. Then you will understand, because on every experiment we will begin with, yes, the plant is, the well-potted plant is kept in darkness for 24 to 48 hours in order to destarch. That is the first sentence we will always use on when we talk about any experiment on photosynthesis. So I have said that. Having said that, we go to the test for starch. Now this is not an experiment on complete test for starch. This is one of the steps for starch test. Now the first step is, at the end of each experiment, we pluck the leaf. Okay? When you pluck the leaf, what we do, the first one is we dip in the boiling water. Why do we dip in the boiling water? In order to kill the cell. They will ask in the exams questions, what is the first step of starch test? The first step of starch test is, we pluck the leaf, we remove the leaf and dip it in boiling water. They will ask you, why do you dip in boiling water? In order to kill the cells. So, the leaf is dipped in boiling water to kill the cells. Step number 2. The same leaf is boiled over a hot water bath in methylated spirit. Remember, the leaf which was dipped in the boiling water, the cells are killed. That leaf is taken and boiled in methylated spirit over a hot water bath. Remember, you have a beaker containing water which is going on boiling, and in that beaker you have the test tube containing methylated spirit, and the leaf is immersed into the methylated spirit, which is also called methyl alcohol. So you have this test tube containing methylated spirit, and in that methylated spirit you have kept the leaf, and you are boiling it over a hot water bath, meaning the test tube is getting bathed with these. मतलब ये वाला test tube इसका beaker में है पानी वाला, जिसमें पानी है, तो it is being dipped here, so it is bathed over a hot water bath, meaning the test tube is kept inside a hot water bath. You have the fire burning, the water is going on boiling, you have the test tube inside, in which you have the methylated spirit, and then you have the leaf inside. Now they ask you, why don't you keep the leaf, why don't you boil the leaf in methylated spirit directly on the Bunsen burner? This is your Bunsen burner. Why don't you directly boil the leaf in the methylated spirit? We cannot keep directly the fire because it is highly inflammable. They'll ask you, give reason that the leaf is boiled in methylated spirit over a hot water bath. We have to, this is the second step. Second thing they'll ask you is, why do you boil the leaf in methylated spirit? We boil the leaf in methylated spirit in order to remove the chlorophyll. The first step is to kill the cell. The second step is to remove the chlorophyll. So the chlorophyll can be removed only when you boil it in methylated spirit. And you cannot boil directly in the fire because it is highly inflammable. It's because of that we are doing it over a hot water bath. The third step is, after that the leaf becomes hard and brittle. You know, brittle means easily breaks. It becomes hard but easily breakable. So in order to make it smooth, we again just dip it in a hot water. So once you dip that leaf in a hot water, it becomes smooth and soft. Then you take a small tile, any tile, place the leaf on it, and if the starch is present, it turns blue-black. Now we pour iodine solution. Now we have the leaf is hard and brittle. Then we have dipped it in the hot water. After that we are placing it on a tile. Now we are pouring iodine solution. When you pour iodine solution, if the color of the iodine solution is brown. If starch is present, it turns If starch is not present, it remains brown. I repeat, the fourth step is you are taking the leaf which was dipped in the hot water and placing it on a towel. Then you are pouring iodine solution. When you pour iodine solution, if the starch is present, it turns blue-black. If not, it remains brown because the color of the iodine is brown. So we have finished 2 points. Number 1, destarching. Number 2, the test for starch. Destarching, we keep 24 to 48 hours in the darkness to remove the starch. Thereafter, now we go for, at the end of each experiment, we go for the starch test. Now we go to the first experiment. The first experiment is chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Always please remember, for chlorophyll is essential to prove that chlorophyll is essential, because we know the raw materials needed for photosynthesis are chlorophyll, sunlight and water. Okay. Now these are the carbon dioxide. Chlorophyll, sunlight, water and carbon dioxide are the raw materials needed for photosynthesis. So the first raw material is your chlorophyll. You may have other raw materials available, but if the chlorophyll is not present, the leaf cannot undergo photosynthesis. To prove that only the chloroplast or the chlorophyll takes part in photosynthesis, you take a variegated leaf. Remember the word variegated, very different. Differently colored leaf with different colors. So maybe orange color, red color, yellow color, green color. So here, this is a variegated leaf. Whenever the diagram looks like that, remember it is a variegated leaf, which means it contains chlorophyll along with that other colors. So automatically, whenever you see a diagram in the examination of this type, you simply close your eyes and write. The aim of the experiment is to prove that chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Okay? So you take this leaf, you take a plant having variegated leaf, keep it in the sunlight first. Before that, what should you do? Before any experiment, you have to destarch it. So you are taking a well-watered potted plant, keeping it in the darkness for 24 to 48 hours. What for? To remove the starch. After removing the starch, now here in case of chlorophyll, you should have a plant which has variegated leaf. You cannot take any plant in every plant. You have to take only that plant like a croton. Croton has got variegated leaf. So you have to take only that plant which has different colors. And at home, if you have a croton leaves which has, you will have red color, orange color, yellow color, white color, green color. So you have all 4 colors, and green color meaning it contains chlorophyll. If it is yellow and orange and red, it contains chromoplast. If it is white, it contains leucoplast. So which means that particular crotons will have all 3 type of plastics. It will have leucoplast, it will have chloroplast, it will have chromoplast. So if it is chloroplast, it will have chlorophyll. Now after discharging, you are keeping it in the sunlight for 3 to 4 hours for photosynthesis to take place. At the end of the photosynthesis, what do? You are plucking the leaf. You are plucking the leaf and performing the starch test. The first step, you are plucking the leaf and dipping it in the boiling water to kill the cell. Second step, you are boiling the leaf in methylated spirit over a hot water bath to remove the chlorophyll. Okay? And you are doing it in methylated spirit over a hot water bath because the methylated spirit is highly inflammable. And the third step, the leaf becomes hard and brittle, and you are dipping it again in the hot water to make it smooth and soft, and you are placing it in a towel and pouring iodine solution, and wherever there is green color, it turns blue-black. Wherever there is white color, or orange color, or red color, or yellow color, it remains brown because the starch was not synthesized in other region except in the green region, because the green region contains chlorophyll, and thus they prove chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Next we go to sunlight is essential for photosynthesis. Okay, it sounds very simple. Remember, before any experiment on photosynthesis, you have to destarch. So similarly here also, you take a well-watered potted plant, keep it in the darkness for 24 to 48 hours. What for? To remove the starch, because in these 24 to 48 hours, whatever the starch was synthesized previously will be utilized, and at the end of 48 hours, the plant will be left with no starch. it will be ready for photosynthesis with the empty vessel. Now you are keeping it at the end of the now here what you have to do is, before the photosynthesis, one more step you have to do is you have to cover part of a leaf with a black paper, because the black paper prevents the entry of sunlight. Now you take the black paper and draw a star-shaped structure at the center and clip it nicely, tightly clip it from both the sides. Okay? Suppose you have a leaf here you have black paper, here you have black paper, clip it nicely. At the center you have a star-shaped structure, and exactly in this manner, take 2-3 leaves, do it in this manner, and after that keep it in the sunlight. It undergoes photosynthesis. After 2 to 3 hours, you go for performing starch test. As I said, pluck one of the leaf, dip it in boiling water to kill the cell, take the leaf, boil it in methylated spirit over a hot water bath to kill the chlorophyll, then you dip it in hot water to make it smooth, then place it on a tile and pour iodine solution. Here you will note the difference that inside this star, because this part was not covered with the black paper, this was not covered with the black paper, this was not covered with the black paper. So in this region it turns blue-black. Whereas similarly inside the star it turns blue-black, but wherever it was covered with the black paper it remains brown, because this zone did not get the sunlight. The sunlight was not available in the zone, in the region wherever the leaf was covered with the black paper. Whereas the non-covered area, where it was directly the green leaf was exposed to sunlight, got sufficient sunlight along with other raw materials, underwent photosynthesis, starch, synthesized starch, and then it tested positive for starch test. That's about the sunlight is essential for photosynthesis. Okay, so we have finished. Chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Sunlight is essential for photosynthesis. Next we go to carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. Now here what you have to do is some prerequisites you have to do. In case of chlorophyll you just didn't have to do anything because it's all inbuilt. In case of sunlight is essential, you have to do an extra job of covering it with the black paper so that certain area of the leaf does not get sunlight, which means you are preventing certain area, you are depriving certain area of the leaf from sunlight, which means here we are getting everything else except sunlight, but here we are getting all the raw materials needed for photosynthesis. This area gives all the raw materials needed for photosynthesis, that is your water, carbon dioxide, sunlight, chlorophyll, etc. Similarly here, but this region which is covered with the black paper, okay, covered with the black paper, does get everything, it gets everything except sunlight. Similarly here, you are taking a twig. The twig has 3 leaves, leaf A, leaf B, leaf C. Okay, now what you do is, you take a flask containing potassium hydroxide. Now flask, you are taking a flask that contains potassium hydroxide, and the property of potassium hydroxide is it absorbs carbon dioxide. Okay. Now you are taking a twig that has 3 leaves. So we have A, B, C. So you are one of the leaves you are inserting into the flask. Okay. Now it's into the flask which contains potassium hydroxide. So the leaf C is inserted into the flask which contains potassium hydroxide. So you have the leaf A, leaf B, leaf C. And I told you the property of potassium hydroxide is to absorb carbon dioxide, which means the leaf C will get chlorophyll, will get water, it will get sunlight, but it will be deprived of carbon dioxide. Why? Because whatever carbon dioxide is present inside the flask is being absorbed by potassium hydroxide. So the leaf C is deprived of carbon dioxide. Whereas A and B gets all the raw materials needed for photosynthesis. It gets carbon dioxide from atmosphere, it gets sunlight, it gets water, it has chlorophyll. You leave the setup for 2 to 3 hours in the sunlight. At the end of 3 hours, okay, you pluck the leaf, all 3 leaves you pluck, leaf A you pluck, B you pluck, C you pluck, and perform starch test. Now what do you do for the are taking the leaf, plucking the leaf, dipping it in the boiling water to kill the cell. After that, you are boiling it in methylated spirit over a hot water bath to remove the chlorophyll. First, you are doing it for killing the cell. Second, you are removing the chlorophyll. Third, you are taking that and dipping it in the hot water to make it smooth. And fourth, you are placing it on a tile and pouring iron solution. Remember children, leaf A and leaf B will test positive. It will turn blue-black because it got all the raw materials needed for photosynthesis. But leaf C will remain brown because though it had all the raw materials needed, it did not need carbon dioxide because whatever carbon dioxide was present inside the flask is being absorbed by KOH. Absolutely, there was no carbon dioxide available for leaf C, and that it may test negative for starch test, meaning it remains brown. You also another very easy way, you just keep it in a horizontal manner, one of the bottle containing KOH, insert one of the leaf inside. So it has this part of the leaf will not perform photosynthesis because carbon dioxide is not available, whereas this part of the leaf will perform photosynthesis because this part of the leaf gets all the raw materials needed for photosynthesis. Now that's about the experiment on carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis, and the fourth one is to prove that oxygen only is involved during, now we have always learned during photosynthesis carbon dioxide goes in and carbon dioxide comes out, which means the plant takes in carbon dioxide during photosynthesis and gives out oxygen. So now we have to prove that one, it is the gas formed during photosynthesis is oxygen, not any other gas. For that, what we do is we take a beaker containing water, okay, and we also take the hydrilla. We take hydrilla and insert that in a funnel and cover that funnel with a test tube. Then at the base, in order to give a support, you are having a slide, so that the leaf nicely sits on the slide and it is covered by, in which you are inserting the hydrilla into the funnel and then it is touching the slide and you are covering with your test tube. Now the entire setup is kept in the sunlight for 2 to 3 hours. Okay? And now here you don't have to perform starch test because you are not doing that. Yet the purpose of this experiment is to prove that oxygen is evolved during photosynthesis. Now you will see a number of bubbles coming up. Now as the bubbles come up, what you do is slightly you remove and you take the burning matchstick and show here, it will burn vigorously. And because oxygen is a combustible substance and when exposed, when a flame is exposed in the presence of oxygen, it burns vigorously, and that is a sign that to prove that oxygen is evolved during photosynthesis. Now they will ask you questions. Why do you perform this experiment in water? Now the air bubbles containing oxygen, it gets evolved and it gets moving up. Now that will be seen only in water particle when it is in the water. The air bubbles are seen only in water. 2. We are performing the only the aquatic plant. We can use only the aquatic plant. Since entire setup is performed in water, we have to use only the aquatic plant. And I will ask you why it is performed in water, because in order to see the air bubbles coming up. Number 2, why do you use hydrilla, not other plant? Because the total experiment is conducted in water, and that you need an aquatic plant, and hydrilla is an aquatic plant, and that we are using aquatic plant and hydrilla to perform this. 3, if you put a few grams of calcium carbonate, it accelerates the rate of photosynthesis. And if you don't do that, it decelerates the rate of, it does not decelerate, it takes place, but because when you put the calcium carbonate, it gets dissolved and carbon dioxide is released. So both the carbon dioxide greater is the rate of photosynthesis. Now these are the experiments, various experiments. With these, almost we come to the end of chapter. What is left is carbon cycle. It's very simple, children. Carbon cycle, because the plant synthesizes starch. Utilizing the it prepares a starch. This starch is being utilized by all others. That carbon is transferred to all other living organisms in the form of food chain. And the other living organisms in turn releases the carbon dioxide either during breakdown of glucose or dead and decaying organisms or from breathing out. So thus this carbon is being cycled from plant to living organism to dead and decaying organism, back to atmosphere back to plant, and which is called the carbon cycle. With this I have come to the end of the chapter. All that I have left is only one point I have left, that is the regulation of opening and closing of stomata. I will deal that after completing absorption of water by root and transpiration. Thank you children. If you have any doubt you can ask me. When I go to the next class I will repeat the whole thing, I will recap. Thereafter we go to the next chapter. So we have learned in photosynthesis what is photosynthesis, importance of photosynthesis, structure of chloroplast, structure of leaf, the mechanism of photosynthesis. Then we went to the adaptation of leaf for photosynthesis, the external factors for affecting the photosynthesis, internal factors affecting the rate of photosynthesis. Then we came to various experiments on photosynthesis. The first experiment is destarching. It's not an experiment, it is just you are keeping the plant to destarch. We have to destarch to prove that the starch is synthesized only during the experiment. Then we are going to perform various experiments on photosynthesis. We have mainly 4 types of experiments. Number 1, chlorophyll is essential. Number 2, sunlight is essential. In case of sunlight, you have the black paper covered. Then you have the carbon dioxide is essential. There you are using potassium hydroxide to absorb carbon dioxide, and that the leaf does not give carbon dioxide, it takes all other raw material. Then you have the 4th experiment, something that is oxygen is involved during photosynthesis, and except the oxygen is involved during photosynthesis, for all other experiments, especially the raw materials is essential for photosynthesis. For chlorophyll, sunlight, carbon dioxide, you have to always go for destarching, and at the end of the experiment you have to go for starch test. With this I come to the end of the chapter. We will see the next class on absorption of water by root. Next, coming to factors affecting photosynthesis. There are 2 types of factors. One is the atmospheric factor or the external factor. Second, the internal factors. So the different external factors that affect the photosynthesis. Either it is it is accelerated or decelerated. That is, number 1 is light intensity. Children, the light intensity and carbon dioxide are interconnected. Now, as the light intensity, from dawn to noon, with the increase in the light phase, the light availability, the rate of photosynthesis increases. Okay, and it keeps increasing and reaches a particular point called the first saturation point. Okay, that is, at that first saturation point, the carbon dioxide available is 0.02%. But suppose if the carbon dioxide is still available more and more, even if the light intensity increases, the photosynthesis keeps happening, it increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases. Now that goes up to the availability of carbon dioxide to 0.05. Now which is called the saturation point 2. So which means you have the rate of photosynthesis keeps on increasing with the increase in the light intensity. At a point it gets stabilized, which is called the saturation point 1. At that point the carbon dioxide available is only 0.02%. But if the atmosphere is capable of giving both carbon dioxide into the leaf, so if the temperature is, if the light intensity is increasing, so with the increase in the light, if the rate of carbon dioxide available is in proportion to the increase in the light intensity, the photosynthesis also keeps increasing, but it comes to second phase of stabilization at 0.05% carbon dioxide availability. I repeat, if you have not got me clearly, with regard to light intensity, with the increase in the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis increases as simultaneously the carbon dioxide is available. Now it goes on increasing and reaches the first getting it clearly? As the light intensity goes on increasing from morning throughout the day, the rate of photosynthesis keeps on increasing. Simultaneously, you have the availability of carbon dioxide. When the carbon dioxide availability is 0.02, it reaches up first saturation point. After that, if there is availability of carbon dioxide, then with the increase in the light intensity, there is an increase in the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis keeps increasing and reaches a second phase of stabilization or second saturation point, in which the availability of carbon dioxide becomes 0.05%. Thereafter, the photosynthesis cannot take place even if there is a severe sunlight or if there is more concentration, in which those percentage, more than 0.05%, the photosynthesis does not take place, and in the severe sunlight, the deep intensity of sunlight, the photosynthesis does not take place. That's about the light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration. Now coming to temperature, the optimum temperature needed for photosynthesis is when it goes on increasing. Once the light is available, carbon dioxide available, and if the temperature is there, the photosynthesis does take place, and with the increase in the temperature, the photosynthesis keeps increasing. Okay, rate of photosynthesis keeps increasing. But once the temperature reaches 35 degrees Celsius, remember children, once the temperature becomes 35 degrees Celsius, which is called the optimum temperature, after that the rate of photosynthesis decreases. I repeat, with the increase in the temperature, the rate of photosynthesis increases. Once the temperature reaches 35 degrees Celsius, it stops, which means the optimum temperature for photosynthesis to take place is 35 degrees Celsius. Beyond 35 degrees Celsius, the rate of photosynthesis decreases. In other words, with increase in every 10 degrees Celsius, the rate of photosynthesis doubles. I repeat, the rate of photosynthesis doubles with increase in every 10 degrees Celsius, which means if it is 10% photosynthesis taking place at 10 degrees Celsius, 20% will take place at 20, 40 will take place at 30, and maybe 50, 60 will take place at 40, but the optimum temperature is 35 degrees Celsius. Thereafter, the rate of photosynthesis decreases. So the temperature affects indirectly the rate of photosynthesis. Similarly, water content. Suppose there is scarcity of water. Remember, though a lot of water is being absorbed by the root, but it is lost due to transpiration. So the availability of water, now actually the photosynthesis uses only 1% of the total absorbed water for photosynthesis, because a lot of water that is absorbed by the root is being lost during during transpiration. And if there is scarcity of water during the day, all the more it cannot absorb. So it absorbs maximum amount of water during night, and during the day, though it is absorbing, but simultaneously it is getting lost. So thus, the leaf uses only 1% of the absorbed water by the root for photosynthesis. I am sure you are clear with. I repeat the external factor, especially this. I am sure you are still a little confusion. I can understand you. Remember, the light intensity and carbon dioxide are interconnected. With the increase in the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis increases. Simultaneously, you have the carbon dioxide available. If the availability of carbon dioxide goes on 0.02% and the light intensity has increased, at this point there is first saturation point. Then suppose there is greater intensity of light, but if the carbon dioxide availability is going on increasing, and it can go on up to 0.05%, even though there is intensity of light rays is there, but once it is 0.05%, it reaches the availability of carbon dioxide, it reaches the saturation point 2, and with that it gets constantly stabilized. That is about light and carbon dioxide affecting the rate of photosynthesis. Temperature is set. Increase in the temperature enhances the rate of photosynthesis. And at every 10 degrees doubles, which is called Q10 law. Remember children, they'll ask you in the examination what is Q10 law. Q10 law, Q is quantum, that is unit energy. So at every 10 degrees Celsius, the rate of photosynthesis doubles. If it is 50% at 20 degrees Celsius, it becomes 100% at 30 degrees Celsius. So, but once the temperature of the atmosphere reaches 35 degrees Celsius, which is called optimum temperature, the rate of photosynthesis stops, which means it does not stop, it starts decreasing. In the same way by tenfold. Okay, it decreases at increases at every 10 degrees Celsius. After 35 degrees Celsius, it starts, the rate of photosynthesis starts decreasing and gradually it stops the photosynthetic process. Now that's about the external factor. Coming to the internal factor. Now the chlorophyll or the chloroplast. Okay, I told you sometimes if the chloroplast, especially here it is chloroplast, if there is a nutritional deficiency, sufficient mineral element is not available for the chlorophyll to, survive and grow and be able to do. So the chloroplast and the chlorophyll will not be efficient to perform the photosynthesis. So due to nutritional deficiency, the chloroplast will not be able to take part in the photosynthesis. So it affects indirectly the rate of photosynthesis. Second, the protoplasm. Suppose if there is a dehydration, the cell starts drying due to non-availability of water or due to drought, due to various factors, automatically it affects the rate of photosynthesis. Similarly, due to over-photosynthesis, there is lot of glucose and starch in the protoplasm, automatically it affects the photosynthesis. Photosynthesis does not take place. So the structure of leaf, I could be already told about the adaptation. Now if all these adaptations are proper in the leaf, it enhances the rate of photosynthesis, and if the leaf structure is not proper, it decreases the rate of photosynthesis. For example, if you go to the pine tree in the hills, as well as you have your cactus and other plants with a reduced leaf in the deserts. Now they have the narrow leaf in the hills due to lack of availability of water. So the leaf is narrow, automatically the photosynthesis rate is also in proportion to the size of the leaf. Similarly, the leaf are reduced to different other structures in the cactus plants. So in their case also there is a reduced rate of photosynthesis, like the leaf gets reduced to spines, etc., thick stem, etc. In their case also the rate of photosynthesis gets decreased. So thus the internal factor like chloroplast, the nutritional value of available for the growth of the chloroplast in turn enhances. If it is proper, it enhances the rate of photosynthesis. If the chloroplast is not healthy, it has not got sufficient mineral element, it will not be efficient in taking part in photosynthesis. Protoplasm, I told you, basing on the dehydration and hydration, as well as presence of starch and absence of starch, and structure of leaf, we have already done that. So far what we did is, now we learned about the structure of leaf, where exactly the chloroplast is present. I said the chloroplast is present in the mesophyll tissue, and the mesophyll tissues are made up of parasite tissue and spongy parenchyma are collectively called the mesophyll cells, in which you have the chloroplast present. Besides that, the guard cell also has got the chloroplast. I purposely told you now, the guard cells have the chloroplast, they also undergo photosynthesis. You have to remember when I get back to absorb, especially the osmosis chapter, how does the stomata opens and closes basing on the photosynthesis taking place and starch being prepared here too. And then we learned about that, and we said there is an epidermal cell, there is a stomata, there is a cuticle which is waxy in nature, and then transparent and enhances the entry of light. Then we learned about the adaptation of leaf for photosynthesis, and we have 7 points over there. Then we learned about the external factor, that is light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, temperature and water content available or present inside the cell. The internal factor, you have the chloroplast, protoplasm, the nature. The nature of chloroplast may be, if the mineral ion is not available, they cannot perform chloroplast. Protoplast, if there is no water, there is dehydration, it is getting dried, it cannot perform it does not need to perform photosynthesis. And structure of leaf, you have said, if these adaptations, if all these arrangements are proper in the leaf, it is efficiently, it will take part in the photosynthesis. Otherwise, it's in proportion to the adaptation, and structure of leaf is in proportion to the efficiency of the photosynthesis taking place in the leaf. Okay. Now, this is